I just feel like I'm supposed to kick something down as soon as the song ends. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
an
exactly.
explosion in the background.
I was about to grab a guitar and join in.
Yeah. Like I ripped the shirt off, show chest
Yeah,
hair,
exactly.
something
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah, yeah. No.
yeah.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the GitOps Guide to the Galaxy. Hilary is not with us tonight, but she will be back next time. But we do have the next best thing. We have Christian, who's back,
Yes.
baby. You want to go
Back.
ahead and
I'm
introduce
back.
yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. For those that don't remember, yeah, this used to be my show, and then Hillary picked up the ball and ran with it. So definitely second best thing. I like the intro. That's kind of
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. So for those that don't know me, I'm Christian Hernandez. As you see right there, down there, I said GitOps Kingpin. I'm Argo City maintainer, contributor, a big proponent from the early days. Still do it, still using
Yeah,
it.
man.
Now I'm wearing the shirt, right, synced. So and now I am at Isovalent Cisco, right, doing security, cloud native networking, everything having to do with platform engineering. So still using Argo. We use Argo internally a lot as well, so my skills still stay up to date.
Nice. And you do a lot of the conference tours too, right? Like you do. I think I've seen you at every KubeCon I've ever been to. Like I can't remember if I saw you. Were you at Amsterdam this year? You were, right?
I was in Amsterdam. Yes, I
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
Okay. I remember I was like the awkward guy over there trying to say hi to an old friend. You're busy talking, like, being busy.
Yeah, it's always weird at these conferences. So yeah, like I do a lot of conferences. I was at Summit as well. It feels like now I'm doing more conferences as of late. But it's always weird at conferences because you see all these like people you used to work with, like old friends and stuff, and you want to say hi, but like you're like you're like working the booth, you're talking with people,
Yeah.
and it's like I have a list of people that I want to catch up with, and like I get to like 10% of them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
Because you got to be a grown up, right?
yeah, exactly. You got to be a grown up. You got to work, right? We're there to work, actually. So
I guess.
oh man, I guess we have to work.
Yeah, I did the keynote for that for the OpenShift Commons, and then like that's what you've presented before. So like you build up to it, you get ready, you do it, and then when you're done, you're like, it's an adrenaline dump, and you're like, I am exhausted. Like I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't even want to eat. And yeah, that's how it was for me. And then I've ran into a couple of people. Like there's a guy that used to watch our other stream named Mike McDonald. Oh my God, not Mike McDonald. Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot his last name. Mike Murphy. And so he was over on like the Red Hat support side, and then now he's working for somebody else. He's working for the IBM Cloud Cost team. And I ran into him, and he's like, "Hey, it's Mike." And I'm like, "Oh, it's cool. So when you catch up with people you haven't seen in years, you know what I mean?" So
yeah. It's always, and I did that at Summit, where it was funny because Isovalent had a booth at Red Hat Summit, and like my coworkers there is like everyone that walks up like knows you. Like it's like, well, yeah, well, like I was at Red Hat for a while there, and it's and then I'm seeing these people for like again, it's like, oh my God, it's Christian. I'm like, oh my God, it's you.
Yeah.
So it's definitely and it's definitely nice. It's definitely there's something special about that for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Do you remember that game back in the day? It's like the 6 Degrees to Kevin Bacon.
Yes, yeah. I remember
that's
that.
Like you and Sully. It's like the 6 Degrees to the Christian or whatever.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Know somebody that's just It's
know
just,
somebody,
like,
know somebody. Yeah,
dude. Because Sully, you and Sully were connected. Yeah.
Little
mafiosos.
No, yeah.
Awesome. So hey, appreciate you coming on, and glad you're here, and it's good catching up with you. I've been trying to follow you as much as I can on LinkedIn, but you're busy, dude. You got a lot going on. So why don't you tell us what you're going to talk about?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's I've been, like I said before, I've been doing a lot of work with networking and with like security, right? From that aspect, right? So now I'm in a lot of ways I'm going back to like my roots of like platform engineering and system administration and doing that. Where I spent the bulk of my time, on Argo CD with application delivery and doing managing like Kubernetes and cloud native things, right? But now I'm kind of like now I'm like meeting it back in the middle, right? And so a lot of the times, right, like I spent my time with Argo CD and I wanted to talk about how Argo CD in general, right? And I'm gonna kind of, although Hilliary is not here, I'm gonna kind of put in spirit, I'm gonna put a platform engineering spin on that, on it as well. Where back in the early days of Intuit, when they created Argo CD, it was to manage Kubernetes in a lot of ways, similarly to what like kind of like the goal of OpenShift was really operationalizing Kubernetes, right? So back in the day, right, you install Kubernetes, all like the only controllers that were there were like pods and services, right? Like there was deployments, right? And so that's why, like, for a while there, like, OpenShift had like a deployment config, right? Like, just because there was these things that were missing, right? It had a route, right? Because there was no way to like get traffic into the cluster. It was very, very early on, and really OpenShift built, back in the days, the goal was to build like a platform, right? Kind of like a usable platform for platform engineers or DevOps engineers, whatever we're calling ourselves nowadays, right?
Right. Yes.
System administrators, right? It's like
AI agents.
Like the AI agents, right? Right. Next, we'll just like kind of be driving, 10, MCP servers and,
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that MCP server wrangler, right? Herding cats. So back, that was kind of like the goal. Early on, well, like Intuit, like, again, was very early adopter of Kubernetes, right? For those that are watching that don't know, really read up on like Intuit. Like they were actually, very, very bold in the beginning of adopting Kubernetes. So when you were adopting Kubernetes and not adopting OpenShift, right? So like there was a time when you adopted Kubernetes, you missed a lot, right? You were missing out on a lot. You were missing out on, like I said before, all you had was like pods and, and services and, good luck, right? Like node ports and, good luck. So they had a need, and they built, the Argo ecosystem, specifically Argo CD, to kind of attack that need, right? To fulfill that need. Similarly, right? Like it's like you look at OpenShift, it has like the concept of like users and groups, and it's like there wasn't that concept in Kubernetes. So on Argo CD, there's a concept of like projects, right? Which is like the same thing that OpenShift did, right? Like, well, yeah, namespace, yes, but like a project is encompassing of a lot of other things. So with Argo CD had users, had a concepts of users, has concepts of groups and RBAC and all of that stuff. They had to build that in. And so they built in what we call in Argo CD, what we call a what do you call it? Kind of like an orchestration layer, right? You have like this like interface into Argo CD where you're orchestrating workloads, and there is this concept of like security and RBAC, but it's built into a different layer, right? It's built in higher up the layer, right? Like people that are interfacing with it, that the platform really doesn't really know about, right? And I think that nowadays, I think a lot of people have gotten it, but like from like a platform engineering standpoint, you need to think of like the entire like platform from like your orchestration layer needs to like mirror like the network security layer, right? And the runtime security layer, like all those things need to be kind of like cohesive, right? You can't just put out things like, I'm doing RBAC and that's like enough. Right. Like on OpenShift, right? Like even like OpenShift or Argo CD or any kind of like platform, it's like, I'm doing RBAC at that layer. Like, that necessarily isn't enough, right? That's not enough.
But
there's a good first start, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of want to show kind of want to do something a little different. Actually, shout out to Luke Phillips. So I don't know if you know Luke Phillips. Hilliary knows him. He is a platform engineer, used to work at New York Times, but now he works at FICO, but very, very big in the Argo ecosystem, right? And I worked with him a lot. And, us working at vendors, unless you're like a consultant, like working day in, day out, you're kind of removed from a lot of like the workloads, right? In a way, I sort of miss it. So I'm glad like I get to like talk to and kind of like hack away with like kind of like real end users. So shout out to Luke. If you're watching this, Luke, we had this crazy idea. We always say these two guys with a crazy idea, sort of thing,
Nice.
right? So we did this presentation in ArgoCon, right? So ArgoCon Amsterdam. So for those who didn't attend that, awesome. You're about to see this presentation again. But again, don't miss out, right? So like if you are going to KubeCon North America in Salt Lake, arrive a day early and attend ArgoCon. And if you go to ArgoCon, you actually get access to all the other things that are going on, right? There's like AI Day, there's Cilium Con that's going on as well. There's a lot of OpenShift Commons, right? There's a lot of stuff to do even before KubeCon starts.
Yeah, day zero.
Day zero sort of thing. So let's see if I can. R-Hope 9. I remember you.
Yeah, he's an OG.
Faithful what? OG, yeah, faithful watcher for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Let me see if I can do.
Yeah, and shout out to Luke, right? You said Luke Phillips.
Yeah, Luke Phillips. Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Luke Phillips, man. Great job. Appreciate it. I love like. I did a presentation with a customer at Summit, and it was awesome. Like, just we did some work together. We got really excited about Hypershift, and we did a presentation on it. And it was exciting just working with people that are outside of the group to like what pisses them off, what pisses me off, and then we come together and we just get grumpy together.
Exactly. So do you see my? Oh yeah, you do.
Yep,
see.
I got you going.
Okay. All right. So this is kind of going to be like a situation where I'm switching hats, right? And you're going to see, right? So I'm going to be a platform engineer, right? And then I'm going to be a tenant, right? So if you're thinking about like a multi-tenant system, that's another thing about like Argo and OpenShift try to like solve is like tenancy, right? I think OpenShift did an amazing job there. I think Argo CD is really, really good for like what Intuit needed. I think it can learn a lot.
Yeah,
which it will, right? Version 4.0, we're talking about version 4.0, by the way. That's going to be a big change for Argo CD. Breaking change. A lot of things are going to break. So stay tuned for that.
It's going to be amazing.
All right. Going to be amazing. Platform is ready, right? So I'm a platform engineer, and I just created a new platform for big corp, right? Acme.com, shiny new multi-tenant platform, right? So let's see what we got, right? So we got a Kubernetes cluster, right? So namespaces, we're going to use namespaces, Kubernetes namespaces for our tenant, nice and organized, right? So I have a lot of stuff here, but you see tenant A and tenant B, right? And since I'm from Isovalent, I'm obviously running Cilium for my CNI. And then tenant A, right? So my first tenant, that tenant workloads are running, right? So it has an application running, as you would see, right? Tenant B, right? Their workload is running as well. Awesome. All managed by Argo CD, GitOps at its finest.
Yep. Boom.
Right? Get application, shared services, right? So there's a tenant. We have a couple of tenants there. We have a shared services, right? We're running microservices. We're all cloud native, beautiful as all things should be, right? So everything is in the default Argo CD project, right? So far that should be raising a few red flags there for you. But there's a one Argo CD project. In our network, right? There's no network policies. There's not even a Cilium network policy, which we'll discuss in a little bit, right? We're relying specifically on namespaces for the isolation, right? So that's the that's like the beginning, right? That's the prologue. This is the cluster, right? We have the cluster. We got a couple tenants with applications running. And we're using namespaces only as the tenancy, right? So now I'm going to switch hats, right? Now I'm a tenant. I'm a rogue tenant, right? So nice platform, right? So I don't know about you, Jonny. When I used to run platforms, like there's always a tenant, right? There's always an application, and a team, and they just end up poking around. Right.
Yep.
Like there's always just either one person or one team. They just end. Yeah. There's always one, right? And they always end up poking around. And this is that.
They're
tenant,
nosy.
Right? they're nosy, right? They start curling and doing things, and this is what this is, right? So can I reach tenant B's web service, right? So I'm tenant A, I want to see if I can reach tenant B's web service, and I can. Oh, okay, cool. Like, they have a service, maybe I want to consume that service. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Can I reach I can do that, right? 200. There's a shared config API. Okay, well, I might need that, right? There's a shared configuration. I'm building an application, so I can I see if I do a curl. I see if I have an API, right? Okay, yeah, I can see that shared config. But there's an admin endpoint. Okay, let me see if I can see that. Okay, well, so again, I'm poking around, right? I can connect to tenant A. Tenant A, I can connect to the other tenant's application, which is fine, right? Shared services, I might need to,
right?
And I need to do the shared config. I need to reach that. Awesome. But there's an admin interface, and it looks like I'm able to reach that admin interface, right? So, and I can reach their secrets, right? So I can see tenant B's secrets. So namespaces aren't isolation, right? That's the main point, is right. It's like, okay, like you create a namespace, and that's not really an isolation, right? So the wall break is that namespaces are an organizational boundary, right? So we're talking about the organizational boundary, but not a security boundary. And we mentioned before, we're talking about your platform needs to be cohesive from top to bottom. Like everything needs to match, right? You shouldn't just rely on a single thing, right? Because the default networking model in Kubernetes is flat. Everything can reach everything else by design, right? That was the original intent. Not that it's wrong. It's just that's what you need to know when you're deploying this, right?
Yeah.
So, flipping hats, right? Platform engineer reacts, right? All right, you know what? Right, like that's actually, we should put some security on there, right? So let's add some network policies. Let's add a default deny, right? So I have a network policy. Let's add a default deny a network policy, right? We'll do that. And let's see the policies are in place, right? So I added these network policies. There's a default deny, and then just open up, right? Things like, there's a default deny, but then you want to allow things like DNS, allow things like shared services. I want to allow things like inside my own namespace, I should be able to access my own things, right? So it's kind of like default deny, but then open the things that you need to open. That's standard SOP, right? Everyone should know that, should be doing that, right? So let's do that cross tenant curl again, right? Now I'm back being that weird tenant, poking around again. So see the cross tenant curl timing out, right? So that means that I can't reach that tenant's that curl that I did before. Now it just timed out, right? So cross tenant traffic is blocked at layer 3 and layer 4. But what about that shared config, right? I still need access to that. All right, cool. I still have access to that shared config. But that admin endpoint, I still have access to that, right? So the admin path is still accessible, right, for network, that network policy, right? So standard network policies, they allow layer 3 and layer 4, but they can't distinguish with things like API or admin or things like that, right? So typically, how people solve for this, right, are a number of ways, right? One is pretty heavy-handed, is like, they install things like service mesh, Istio, right?
Yep.
That's pretty heavy, not only in terms of like resources on your cluster, but also just kind of the operational burden, right? Like you now you have to be I don't want to say genius, but now you have to have that domain knowledge of Istio.
Yep, exactly.
And right, and so it's not like it's a really big cognitive overload, but it is the domain knowledge you need to have, and you need to update it, feed and care, and things like that, right? But at Isovalent, we see the CNI. It should be cohesive, right? It shouldn't just be a CNI shouldn't just be the CNI, right? It should be a networking platform that's cloud native, right? And that's kind of why we have this thing called Cilium network policies that is built on top of Cilium, right? So I'm running a Cilium CNI, and it's a superset of standard network policies. So, right, so it means that you can do everything you can do with normal network policies, you can do with Cilium network policies, plus a lot more, right? So let's and then things like layer 7 filtering and DNS aware policies without having the need for a service mesh, right? So the idea is that they're identity based enforcement, really cloud native kind of idea, right? Labels and things like that enforced by eBPF, right? There's a whole thing you can do on eBPF. Maybe I'll have like Dean come on and ask an OpenShift expert and just talk about eBPF, right? Because you can just do a whole thing with eBPF.
Yeah, but we've wanted to get somebody on for that for a million years now. Yeah, that's definitely a good idea.
Yeah, eBPF, like you can just do a whole thing on eBPF, but for those who are interested, like the enforcement happens on eBPF, which is at the kernel level on the operating system, right? So let's look at Cilium network policy. Right, let me scroll up here. So Cilium network policy, as you can see right away, it does layer 3 and 4, but it also does layer 7, right? So you can do things like, I want to allow gets against this API, right? Meaning that I'm going to allow port 8080, but on top of that, if there's an HTTP get on the /API, I will allow that as well, right? And then also, for different tenants, right? So I'm doing namespace A, namespace B, so you can have, different endpoints that you can match to against, right? And then you can do things like DNS, right? Like, all right, a DNS call, allow them to look up anything, right? Because right now we're not really concerned about DNS, but here's just to show you can actually, match patterns, right? Like you can do regex and things like that. So what ends up happening here is that there's an implicit default deny, meaning that if, okay, I'm allowing gets to /API, but if someone tries to do a get on /admin, I'm going to deny that.
Yeah.
Right? All without the need of Istio or sidecars or anything like that. It's all built into the CNI. Right. So
nice.
let's replace, let's delete all the network policies, right? Because those, we still need them, right? But we need a superset of them, right? So we're going to install the Cilium network policies, right? Notice that like instead of having like 800 network policies, now we just need 2, right? We pancake them into a more cohesive network policies, right? Identity-based network policies is what we call it at Cilium land. So now I'm the rogue tenant, right? Coming back. All right. So then now let me do that curl to the API config, right? I'm able to get that. Now the admin path, right? So look, so it's still the same admin path, right? So it's still the same endpoint, but I'm getting a 403. So I want you to take note there. We got a 403. It didn't time out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It actually gave us an actual 403 because it's actually layer 7 aware. It can actually send back, a smart code, right? Instead of just
right.
like, just timing out, right? And being like, okay, well, what happened? No, like now it's, and this is all based on like on Envoy. We have like an Envoy not that layer. It happens on the Envoy layer, right? It's layer 7, and it sends back things like a 403. So now it's a little smarter, right? So now we can, now it's identity aware, meaning like, okay, you can connect to that namespace, you can connect to that endpoint, but only on, only allow gets for that specific endpoint, right? So now you're mixing and matching layer 3, layer 4, and layer 7 policies, and then even DNS rules at this point, but the DNS rules, we're not doing much with it now, right now, right? So,
gotcha.
So that's awesome, right? So now that's a little bit more cohesive, right? Now we think about the namespace isolation versus actual like matching that namespace isolation with some of like network isolation as well, right? So we're not just relying on the Kubernetes isolation, right? Because they're just, again, organizational boundaries, right? The network is locked down. Pretty awesome, right? So this is here. We did this presentation. This is ArgoCon. This is very specific to Argo. So the network is locked down, right? But everything's in the default Argo project, right? So now we're moving up a little bit more in the layers. Now we're going in the Argo CD layer. So create an application, right? So I can, as a tenant, as again, rogue tenant, there's always one, right? Always poking around, see what he can do. What I'm gonna do is that as as tenant A, I want to see if I can deploy something into tenant B's namespace, and actually let me do that. So I can see my rogue workload being deployed into that that tenant's namespace. So the default Argo CD project is basically wide open, and this is one of the things that I always tell people. I actually did a webinar with Acuity, who like they're one of the original creators of Argo CD. Is like about Argo CD security. Is like you need to, like, as soon as you install Argo CD, there's some things you need to do, right? Because the default project is open, and it's open that way just because it just allows for easy deployments, right? But then, like, after you do that initial bootstrapping, you need to start locking it down, right? So Argo CD projects as orchestrational boundaries, right? So we're going to make a orchestrational layer boundary and control what can be deployed where and by whom, right? And so the spec destinations field is the most commonly misconfigured field in Argo CD's projects, right? So step one is create a scoped Argo CD project for each tenant, right? So meaning that we're going to create a what do you call it? A project, right? That only allows the destination to a specific tenant, right? To a specific namespace tenant, right? So basically what we're going to do is we're going to create a project for each tenant and only allow them to be able to deploy there.
An Argo project is not to be confused with an OpenShift project.
No, that is correct. Don't confuse those two. There's I think the word project in general is the most, like, one of the most overused terms.
Oh my god, yeah.
Overloaded terms in cloud in general, but I think in cloud native for sure. That's true.
Yeah.
So don't confuse the two. They have nothing to do with each other. So I created that that project and also created a project for that tenant. So each tenant gets its own project, and in each project they are bound to their specific namespace, right? And notice that how this is an array, right? So it's so basically you just do multiple namespaces a lot, and they allow for file globbing, right? So like you can even, I know a lot of people like will do like a prefix. It'll do tenant A dash star, and as long as you have that, you know, prefix the namespace, it'll allow that deployment for another stream, I think. So shared services, right? So another we have a shared service project as well, right? We have something that all tenants need to access. Step two is to lock down that default project, right? So empty destinations means nothing can deploy there. So basically, we lock that down. So lockdown, do not use. Destination, empty set, meaning nothing, right? You can't deploy to anything. You cannot delete the default project in Argo CD. So just FYI, all you can do is lock it down. So just deploy that, right? And then recreate the applications, right? So I'm going to delete the application, right? I'm going to do a non-cascading delete, FYI for those. By default, it's a non-cascading delete, meaning that you can't, it deletes the application metadata, but not the actual workloads that's running, right? It's the safest way to do it. And then deploy the applications, apply the RBAC. So now we're going to deploy RBAC, right? So I think I did a stream once in GitOps Guide to the Galaxy where I spent like the whole hour talking about how to set up RBAC. Me and Hilliary did that. So for those that are watching, go watch that, and all of this will make sense to you. But you're basically creating policy, creating not only the policy, but you're creating things like roles in users and assigning users to specific roles, and that's what this is here. Feel free to watch that. It's a great stream. Now let's see the projects, right? Cool. So we have projects here. Yeah. Try to find that. You might have to scroll for a while. So we got we got app projects, right? You got app projects for each tenant, right? So each tenant gets its own project. Awesome. And let's try that cross-tenant deployment, right? Check the application status. And Kubernetes lets me apply it, right? It's a valid YAML, but Argo CD will block it. It says destination and namespace do not match any of the allowed destinations, right? So we effectively blocked it. Deployment plane is now locked down, right? Lockdown network, locked out the deployment plane. Let's delete that rogue application. Now we have 2 layers of isolation, the orchestration layer and the network layer, one using Argo CD and one using Cilium. And, just like with anything else in GitOps, right, you're going to want to manage your network, these policies in Argo CD, right? So that way for sure they're all cohesive and, they're all managed, centrally, right? So that, we're doing these things manually or one by one, right? But ideally you want to make sure they're all managed by Argo. All right, the next part is scene 3, right? So we're doing.
I'm sorry. Yeah, just real quick. So like when you're setting this up, right? Like in a production environment, like do you have all this in a Git repo, right? So like you have a new tenant, you add a new tenant to a list, you apply that to Git, and you let Argo roll out. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then so you manage Argo with Git, and then you also obviously you have Argo managing your cluster at the cluster level and doing all the infrastructure things and like the network policies and or Cilium policies in this case.
Yes. Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So you're managing all of that with Argo. You want to do all of that with Argo, just so that way right? You don't want to run into an issue and then fix it. Run into an issue, right? You want to be able to do that on the get-go. And actually, this is a great segue that you asked that question. You probably did it unintentionally, but that's kind of like what this next that's what this next scene's about, right? Like how do we scale, right? How do we scale with this, right? This is fine. Like we're doing the right things as things are happening, but then like again, 100 tenants by Monday, right? Like I want to scale out, right? We want to now start onboarding the rest of the team, the rest of your organization, right? So manually configured projects and Cilium network policies for 5 tenants. That's great. But the company wants 100 more, right? 1,000 more, 500, 5 million more. It gets crazy, right? And then someone again did a kubectl edit, out of band edit of a Cilium network policy directly, right? Argo CD can self heal that, right? Can self heal, revert that. Yep. But as a platform engineer, you may not even notice, right? And 100 tenants, like you don't want to be able to copy and paste all this constantly, right? So a good thing that you can do is use R9 customize and application sets, right? Like that's how you scale, right? Using these tools. There's luckily there's something already there, right? We're standing on the shoulders of giants, right? On the mistakes of past that people build tools that have already ran into this. So application sets, there's a Git directory generator, meaning that anytime something lands in a directory, Argo CD will deploy it. And I think that's like that one's one of my favorite, and that one, and also the list generator, which is like a simple key value pair, is probably solves like 80% of what you need to do. So, but basically one Git commit, and then you can have 1 to X many of tenants fully onboarded. Because Argo CD is tracking that directory in Git, right? So so you can do things like adding projects, Cilium network policies, RBACs, workloads, all as a single GitOps unit, as a GitOps unit. We need to come up with a term for that. Actually, I'm gonna ask Lou.
I like GitOps unit. I feel like that's accurate and appropriate.
Yeah, that's accurate, right? Yeah, it's a GitOps unit, right? We were deploying this GitOps unit, right, which is encompassing of a project, Cilium network policies, the application workloads, all RBAC, everything you need, right? Everything that's beautiful. right? So here's the application set. So we have this application set, which is targeting this path, right? So it's targeting tenants star, meaning so everything in this directory we're going to deploy, right? And pretty much basic application generator. That did very early on. I did an application set when they first came out. Fun fact, for those that don't know, everyone loves art application sets. Everyone uses application sets. That was created and contributed by Red Hat. That's 100% by Red Hat, an application set. So again, Red Hat coming to the rescue, as always. That was so every time you're using application set, no matter where you're using it, that's a Red Hat tech. So
yeah, that's awesome.
So just FYI. So there's the tenants, right? So I have something for tenant A and something for tenant B. So let's send here the I have a platform admin project, right? So again, you're going to have a project probably specifically for your platform engineering. You may have dozens of them, right? But at the very least, you're going to have one, right, as a kind of like as a management a project for me as an Argo CD admin. And I'm saying, tenant dash star, right? Mm-hmm. Again, like I said, you can glob that. And then when you apply the application set, the tenant onboarding will deploy those applications, right? So now I can actually delete those static applications, right? Tenant A and tenant B, right? I'm gonna delete those applications because those applications are now being managed by the application set. So now let's add a brand new tenant, right? Tenant C, right? So I have A and B, A and this dude C, right? So I have like, this could probably be like in a CI/CD system or whatever, or some sort of automation. But basically, we have like the skeleton, right, that we're going to use in order to deploy a new tenant, right? Everything a tenant is going to need.
Yeah.
You take that and you can run whatever automation that creates that for you. Git commit. I sign all my commits, right? So should you. So the little security thing there, by you should sign your commits, right? It's GPG is free. So I created those things, right? So I created the configuration for Argo CD, customization, network policies, project, RBAC, all of that. One skeleton, deploy that. Again, Argo CD projects doesn't do this, but OpenShift projects does do this, right? Like that OpenShift project creation, you can actually create different objects anytime someone requests a project, right? Argo CD doesn't do that. Again, 4.0, we're going to have some great stuff coming out. So look for that. So waiting for application. We're going to see the new tenant coming up. This will take a little bit. As you know, or you may not know, Argo CD runs like every X minutes.
Yeah, I think it's 5.
Yeah, it doesn't do. So this is actually one of the things where like you're going to want a webhook to set up webhooks, which because the Argo CD will supports webhooks. And so a lot of people's like, oh yeah, it's GitOps, like you don't need webhooks. It's like, no, actually your webhook is a very important part of your workload, right? So that's it. It's one of those things there.
Yeah.
So now I am progressing. Awesome. Let's see what's created. Tenant C. So I got the namespace was created. Argo CD created the namespace. Application projects, right? So there's an app project. So Argo CD created that app project for me. Created those Cilium network policies that everyone's going to want to need. Create the workload for them. And so one commit, full tenant stack, no copy paste, no drift. You could automate this with CI/CD anytime someone requests, right? And when you're onboarding a tenant, they request it, and you can just basically I guess you can connect it to ServiceNow, right? ServiceNow can then generate a CI system that just kind of does all of this for you, and it matches, right? Again, we're thinking about the different layers. All the different layers is matching the networking security layer, the organizational boundary, and then the orchestration boundary that Argo CD has. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So you can do all of that, right? And as a platform engineer, you're going to want all those layers, right? All those layers are going to want to match, right? You don't rely on just one thing, right? Don't rely on just Kubernetes. Don't rely on just Argo. You're going to have all of that stuff. Hundreds of tenants, hundreds of policies. Let's do some observability, right? So Cilium comes with observability built in, right? So if you're running Cilium as a CNI, whether it's on OpenShift or whatever's vanilla Kubernetes, if you're running Cilium, you have the observability built in, which is really, really cool because it in the separate terminal start the Hubble forward. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yes, I know. Now attempting block admin path. Okay, so I have to run this in a different window here.
So let me ask you this while you're doing this, and so and that's hopefully not to confuse or add any more chaos, but like with Cilium, can you also run service mesh, right? Can you also have if you're already kind of invested with service mesh and you wanted to upgrade your CNI to a Cilium or to Isovalent, right? Like, is that do they work cohesively or is there like some
Well, I mean, they do work together. Obviously, the devil's in the details and configurations and stuff like that. But but the answer is yes. Short answer is yes. Like if you're running service mesh, and you can run Cilium along with that as well, right? So so I'm gonna do that. I got that a 403, and I actually need to do a Hubble. So Hubble is the observability layer of Cilium, right? It's the observability. Again, eBPF, right? eBPF also is observing. So we're just kind of everything you get with eBPF for free, we're just building on top of that, right? And so then we have that. And then what's really cool is that Hubble is a connection refused. Config Hubble.
I like the name too.
Yeah, exactly. Let me see here. Hubble config setup, and I need reset. There we go. Okay, so that should work.
Well, it's gonna work.
Yeah, there we go. So Hubble has the it's a see, it's dropped. So let's let me run this again so we can 403. So Hubble has a very TCP-like experience, right? As you see here. So for those that have used TCP, for those like network engineers, right? So whoever has run TCP dump, you'll feel like I always say you'll feel right at home because it has a very TCP dump like experience, right? So you can see that from the client to the shared service, right? This HTTP request was dropped, right? From that endpoint, right? So you can actually just start like seeing and debugging and things like that and see like these actual things work. So it's really, really cool for triage as well. So the UI is it should be available here, but I don't have port forwarding. So there's a UI as well for Hubble if you want to take a look at it. It's very, so for those who have used Kiali, it reminds me of Kiali, right?
Okay.
So but for Kiali, but from a networking standpoint, right? So Kiali will let you see from the application standpoints, like those get and requests, but it shows you everything from like layer 3 up, right? So even like network connections and things like that. So so it gives you that kind of like familiar TCP dump like experience, right? So all right, so the deployment plane is locked down, network locked down. But Argo CD sync process runs with its own highly privileged service account. So again, when you first install Argo CD, you install Argo CD and that service account runs as cluster admin. So for those that don't know, unless you're running on OpenShift, actually OpenShift locks that down for you. If you're running OpenShift GitOps, the operator, they actually locks that down for you. But like just in general, the open source, when you install Argo CD, that service account has access to everything, and that's actually by design. Like if you think about like, if I want to use Argo CD to manage my Kubernetes cluster, I need to be able to manage my Kubernetes cluster. So that service account needs to have wide permissions, right? And so if the app project accidentally like gets misconfigured, right? Like if you accidentally misconfigured something, it actually opens up a way for like unintended changes to come there.
Yeah.
Especially if that service account is highly privileged, right? And so there's by default there's no Kubernetes level enforcement backing up the app project. So you have to enable what we call in Argo CD sync impersonation. So sync impersonation, that's another thing I actually went over from that webinar from Acuity, is that I went over it kind of in detail, but sync impersonation is that you can tell Argo CD, when you run a sync on this application, run it as this service account. So you can actually create a service account, lock it down, and then tell Argo to use that to do the sync. And it makes it for more it's been there for a while, right? It's in 2.10, but we're like in 3.5 now. It's been there for a while, right? So it actually just made it out of alpha into beta, right? So it's pretty stable. So the controller impersonates the tenant's service account during a sync, and so that tenant's service account becomes that enforcement boundary. So you don't have to worry about Argo CD having all this control. You can actually just kind of delegate that control.
Lock it down, yeah.
So lock that down. So you have to turn it on, right? So again, 4.0, this will be enabled by default, but if you're running 3.x now, you have to enable it, right? So you enable that, and then grant the controllers permission to impersonate the service account, right? So you need to add that RBAC. It's a Kubernetes RBAC essentially, right? So you have to say, hey, this service account can impersonate this thing, right? So once you do that, you need to update the tenant projects, right? So basically, what you say when you set up this destination service account, when you sync anything in this namespace, use this service account, right?
Oh, so that's dope. Okay. And then you can just...
Yeah, so you say when you run a sync, so to this server on this namespace, use this service account. So you can actually tell Argo to do that. So you can and then you can just lock it down, right? You can just do, even further, right? So we do that. And now a network's access is tied to the service account's identity. So not just the namespace, right? So as you see here, we lock that down to the service account, right? So that's another thing that the Cilium network policy can do, is that the service account, you can actually apply a network policy to a specific service account, right? So it says anything running as this service account, match these policies to that service account. So you can actually get pretty granular.
That is awesome.
With Cilium network policies, is that you can say, hey, just apply this policy to that service account, and whatever that service account runs as, you're going to apply this network policy. So no matter what pod in what namespace that service account is running, these network policies will be applied there. So that's another really cool thing.
So let me ask you this. So and maybe this is stupid, but so I log into Argo as Jonny, right? Johnny's got access to tenant A. Tenant A's got the service account impersonation thing set up. I commit, or if I log into Argo and I click sync or delete or whatever, will it use my account, or will it just trigger the service account to do whatever action I just requested?
Yeah. The service account it'll happen as a service account. The Argo CD will actually run, but it will run as that service account, right? So if you ever run OC apply -- as, right? If you're it's basically just using the Kubernetes impersonation at that point.
Gotcha. So I would actually never need access to the cluster.
Exactly.
That's what I was alluding to. Yeah, that's
the nirvana.
Dope. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the nirvana, right? So it's the nirvana is like, if you look it up, right, it should still be out there. But the Kelsey Hightower did a talk a long time. This is when he was in CoreOS. So Kubernetes was just early of the earliest. He did there was like 3 people in that talk. This is how old that talk was. Kelsey Hightower. There was like 3 people in that audience. But he said when you're like, he was trying to explain Kubernetes. He's like, Kubernetes is a system designed if I took your SSH keys away, right? If I took SSH keys away from you, how are you going to manage a system, right? kubectl. GitOps or Argo CD, the idea is like, what if I took kubectl away from you, right?
Yeah.
Like if I took kubectl away from you, how would you manage it? And GitOps is that answer, right? And then that's kind of like what you were asking. Like, yeah, you don't really need access to Kubernetes at that point, right? Like you just need access to Argo, and Argo does all of that on your behalf, right?
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. And
So
R9 is asking when 4.0 will arrive.
Oh yeah, that's we actually I have to get back to you on that. It will arrive. We at the maintainers meeting. There a lot of discussion needs to happen. What's going on into if you go to Argo CD and you go under like in GitHub under projects, there's some things already tagged as 4.0 or things that are going to be in 4.0, but there's no timeline yet. It'll be soon. It'll be soon. We'll make an announcement for sure. I actually have access to the Argo project socials, so it'll definitely be there.
Nice. Unless we forget.
All right. Yeah. The tenant. So then, yeah, exactly. The tenant SA cannot create Cilium network policies, right? So the tenant cannot create Cilium network policies. That's only like an admin's job now. So, yeah. So there we go. So we got the Cilium network policies, right? So full architecture, right? We have Cilium network policies controlling layer 3 to layer 7 traffic isolation with DNS aware egress. Argo CD projects, right, are the orchestrational boundary, right? Destinations, repositories, cluster resource whitelist, and then RBAC in Argo CD, right, is where we're accessing the tenants. Right now, we're talking about tenants, right? We're going up the stack. Application sets now are automatically onboarding the workloads. And Argo CD self-heal will, with that drift detection, get history, compliance, all that great stuff that you get with Argo. And then Hubble, right? You can Hubble for observability, right? You got that for triage and things like that. Everything that a platform engineer would want, right? Now we're doing sync impersonations, right? We're adding additional layer of security, right? Of identity-aware isolation through the GitOps pipeline. We're doing that as well, right? 2 layers. We have the orchestration and network layer, all managed by GitOps, right? So we have the 2 layers. Now they're cohesive. Now they're in harmony, as it should be, right? So that was the that was the demo, right? So that was like the talk that we kind of did at ArgoCon, right? In there's things I kind of wanted to add to this, right? I kind of just run out of time, but this is kind of like the idea of what I want to talk about, right? Where your network policies and your Argo CD and your all of that needs to be cohesive. And when we use something like Cilium, that's identity aware, right? That is just more than just a CNI, right? You can do some of these cool things without the need of like Istio, right? Like, and not to like badmouth the Istio, right? Like if you need that, like use it, right? But that's a really, really big hammer if you don't need all the functionalities, right? Like, hey, I just kind of want to, write some simple, like I wrote here, like, you know what? I just kind of like want to control who can do gets and puts and things
basic
like that.
Traffic management, right? Yeah,
basic traffic management. I don't need Istio for all of that, right? It's a whole platform that if you need it, great, right? Like it's great for what it does. But if you don't need it, right, Cilium can get you there, right? That's CNI. And again, this is a Red Hat show. Cilium is a supportable CNI for OpenShift, right? So you can install OpenShift, and it's completely supported by both Isovalent and Red Hat. We have a joint Slack, FYI. I should add you to that, Jonny. I should do a joint Slack. But
please.
For sure.
Let me ask you. So like, with all the craziness that you can do with Istio and with like service mesh in general, right? Like, does a lot of that translate into, or is there a lot of like feature parity between Cilium and like a service mesh where you can add like proxies and or sidecars if you wanted to, or even like if maybe MTLS is my thing and that's what I want to do, is like, is that a capability within Cilium?
Yeah. So that is capability within Cilium. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can do like MTLS with Cilium as well. And actually, there's like a lot you can do with Cilium. Like I'm probably not giving it a good a good enough push here. So like if anyone wants to like get hands on with Cilium, like if you're Kubernetes person already, right, and you kind of just want to get your hands on Cilium, if you go to isovalent.com/labs, LABS, there's like a ton of like free labs that you can take to kind of just see what Cilium can do for you. And you can do things, like MTLS, service mesh, cluster mesh is another thing. It's probably more like an Ask an OpenShift admin sort of thing, where you can like have two clusters and you join them together. And send traffic back and forth right between them. So there's a lot what you can do. Like when I say more than just a CNI, it is like really a cloud native networking platform.
Right.
So it just goes beyond just kind of basic layer 3 and layer 7, right? Because you add like even like by your question, like you want to do like MTLS, right? You want to do layer 7 traffic, right? You want to do an egress gateway, right? You want to control things, who can access things with an egress gateway, right? Maybe you have a service that's sitting outside of Kubernetes that you want to control access to in a cloud native way, right? That there's things like that as well.
Yeah, and I feel like just looking at this, looking at your config, it seems pretty basic, right? Where you start getting into like some of the like the deeper service mesh configs, and you're like, okay, because now you've got different resources for different things, and you're kind of you're going from one resource to another, and it gets confusing as hell. And
yeah,
and without that knowledge of the system and the platform, right? Like, it's, what am I doing? And then, like you just end up keeping everything wide open. Not us, because we know what we're doing, right?
No, not us, but I
mean,
I've never done that.
You know what I mean? But like that ends up being the result, is where like even in OpenShift, people were like, oh, it's too hard because I have to enable some SEC or I have to add some permission that I don't understand. And so what do they do? Everybody gets cluster admin. And then, and that's really just the reality of it. If you don't make it easy enough for people to understand, and how do I go watch the logs? The logs don't make sense to me. You do a TCP dump. If you've ever done a TCP dump, it's accepted, passed, whatever, or dropped.
Dropped. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's like that, to me, it makes sense, and it's awesome to see that you guys are doing this. I don't have any. I'm not trying to disparage service mesh or Istio or anything like that either. But
no, of course not.
I do like the simplicity.
Yeah. Like I said, like I said before, like if you are, it's a heavy hammer, right? Like if you don't need all the bells and whistles, right? Just give me the bell, right? Like, and right. And but Cilium takes that kind of approach, is like, it's a complete networking stack. Now, if you need service mesh, by all means use it.
Right.
But, if you don't, then there's no need to add this additional layer that you need all this domain knowledge, right? To manage. So
cool. Why make it harder?
Yep, exactly.
Well, dude, hey, I appreciate you coming on, and I know it was kind of,
for sure.
I know you're busy as hell, so like I really do appreciate it, and I wish Hilliary was here, because I know she'd appreciate it as well, and probably to give you a hard time for
give me a hard time as always. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, hey, so when 4.0 drops, for real, we'd love to have you come back on and like walk through all the features, and so that we can be mad at you and publicly berate you for introducing all these new things that we hate. So.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna
just kidding.
break your GitOps. That should probably be the title: breaking your GitOps, right?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. But no, I really appreciate it. It was a great presentation. And then you're also coming on the Ask an OpenShift Expert live stream at the end of August, I believe, a month from now. Basically.
At the end of August, yeah.
So that's gonna be.
Stay tuned for that. So I'll see you then.
Yeah. Well, I'll hold my breath. I'm waiting. It's gonna be awesome. So.
All right. Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Is there anything you want to say before I, kick this thing out of here?
Yeah. No. I think that's it. Yeah. So just catch me on Ask an OpenShift admin. I'll be on there talking about other cool networking things.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. And to everybody that's watching, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm Johnny at redhat.com. I'll forward any email or any questions over to Christian if you have any. And if you have any, if you want to check out Cilium and any comments, if questions about OpenShift or GitOps, just hit us up and we'll be glad to answer them. So until next time, take it easy.
Bye, everyone. Cheers.